Militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishya Stapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Kṛṣṇa Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha He Kṛṣṇa Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneswari Visabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, one more time. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga, text number 5. Uddharet ātmanātmānaṁ nātmānam avasādayet ātmaiva hi ātmano bandhur ātmaiva ripur ātmanā uddharet ātmanātmānaṁ nātmānam avasādayet ātmaiva hi ātmano bandhur ātmaiva ripur ātmanā. Somebody else.
Uddharet ātmanātmānaṁ ātmano bandhur ātmaiva ripur ātmanā.
Mataji. Uddharet ātmanātmānaṁ ātmanam avasādayet ātmaiva ātmano bandhur ripur ātmanā. Word for word meaning, uddharet, one must deliver. Ātmanā, by the mind. Ātmanam, the conditioned soul. Never. Ātmanam, the conditioned soul. Avasādayet, put into degradation. Ātmā, mind. Eva, certainly. He, indeed. Ātmanā, of the conditioned soul. Bandhuḥ, friend. Ātmā, mind. Eva, certainly. Ripuḥ, enemy. Ātmanā, of the conditioned soul. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Everybody please repeat. One must deliver himself, with the help of his mind, and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. It's very famous sloka that everyone knows, practically. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word ātmā denotes body, mind, and soul, depending upon different circumstances. In the yoga system, the mind and the conditioned soul are especially important. Since the mind is a central point of yoga practice, ātmā refers here to the mind. The purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects. It is stressed herein that the mind must be so trained that it can deliver the conditioned soul from the mire of nescience. In material existence, one is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses. In fact, the pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with the false ego, which desires to lord it over material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature, and in this way the conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. The best way to disentangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. The word he is used for emphasizing this point. That is, that one must do this. It is also said, nātmānam manuṣyanam karanam vanda mukshayo bandaya vishaya shango mukyai nirvishayang manā. For man, mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. The mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from sense objects is the cause of liberation. Amrita Bindu Upanishad, number 2. Therefore, the mind which is always engaged in Kṛṣṇa consciousness is the cause of supreme liberation. Uddharet ātmanātmānaṁ nātmānam avasādayet ātmaiva hi ātmano bandhur ātmaiva, ripur, ātmanā. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So as Prabhupada mentions here in the purport, Atma denotes body, mind, and soul. This is how Sanskrit works. It doesn't have one straight meaning or equivalent. Of course, it's like in English, when we say water, it can be solid as well. When we say water, automatically we think it is liquid. But it can be solid also. When you freeze the water, it becomes solid. So in Sanskrit, Atma means body, mind, and soul. And in particular here, Atma means what?
Mind.
The mind. So mind is one of the 8 ingredients of this body. The body that we are encaged right now is composed of 8 elements, 5 gross and 3 subtle. Gross means earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And then subtle means mind, intelligence, and ego. That means when one says, "Oh, Prabhu, he's in a bodily concept of life," it's the same as he's in the mental platform. And when we say he's in the mental platform, that means he identifies his body, the mind. It is the mind who's identifying the body as the self. Atma, who is within this body, is always transcendental. It's pure. Cannot be covered by the material energy unless one identifies, the mind identifies or thinks that he is the body. And due to false ego, he will act accordingly that he is not the body, that he is, or he is not the soul, that he is the body. So, as mentions here, Prabhupada says, the first symptom of the one who is on the transcendental platform or in the pursuit of spiritual life is that one must control his mind. Because that is the main purpose of yoga, to control the mind. The main purpose of yoga system so that the mind can be fixed unto the Supreme Lord. Nowadays, they do yoga, so-called yoga, so many yoga clubs, so many yoga institutions. This is part of the what you call New Age group, but the yoga system is quite very, very old. They've been doing yoga since Satya Yuga. But the kind of yoga that they do nowadays is what you call calisthenics. It's more of an exercise. So they don't know what is the purpose of yoga. That means the yoga that they do nowadays is just making yourself strong so that you can be fit and be able to enjoy one's senses with the sense objects. So that is not yoga. Real point of yoga is always meditate unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. That is real yoga. But it says here that one must control the mind and draw it away from the attachment to sense objects. So that is the purpose of yoga, and at the same time, the mind must be focused unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the mind is abhyas. There is a word here that Prabhupada used. Let me see. Yes, abhyas. Because the mind must be constantly engaged in remembering me, Kṛṣṇa, according to the Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 8, text 8. Undeviated from the path, He, O Partha, is sure to reach me. So our goal is to reach the transcendental abode of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world by this practice that the mind is always thinking of Kṛṣṇa. I believe I mentioned this in our last meeting, that in the Bhagavad-Gita, this manmana bhavavan bhakto verse is mentioned twice. One in the 9th chapter and one in the 18th chapter. So how is it that Lord Kṛṣṇa emphasized this? Prabhupada says it's not possible to control the mind. The mind is always thinking of something. The difference between a person who controls the mind and who doesn't control the mind is that if he controls the mind, that means he's thinking of Kṛṣṇa. And if one is not able to control the mind, that means he's thinking of material things. And if one is thinking of Kṛṣṇa, then he is properly situated in a transcendental platform. He's always happy. And the person who is always thinking of material things, he is unhappy. He is disturbed. So the mind, according to this verse, should be controlled. And that person who controls the mind, the controller of the mind, is called Swami. That means master of the senses. Like Swami and Goswami is the same. Go means senses and Swami means master. So those who are in the renounced order of life is supposed to be meant to control one's mind. Otherwise, if one's mind is not controlled, then he is not Swami or Goswami. A Grihastha also can be a Swami. A Grihastha also can be a Goswami if he controls his mind. So the purpose is, first, the false ego should be curtailed. The false ego means, again, I am this body. I am the master of all I survey. But this is not the real ego. The real ego means I am his servant, the Supreme Lord's servant, Krishna's servant. And I'm meant to serve and please the Supreme Lord. I am to be enjoyed, and he is the supreme enjoyer. So before we can go to the transcendental platform, we have to come to that level, and by sharpening our intelligence by the knowledge coming from Guru, Sadhu and Sastra, we'll be able to realize that. Then we will be able to be on top, because there is a sequence: the senses, the mind, intelligence, and the ego. So we have to understand and fully realize that we are not this body, but then we have to sharpen our intelligence. That's why we read Bhagavad-Gita every day. That's why we hear Śrīmad Bhagavatam every day. That's why we chant the holy name every day. Utilizing our senses in purifying ourselves. So the mind can be our best friend, it says here. Ātmano bandhur, a friend, bandhuḥ. ātmanā bandhur, or it can be ātmanā ripuḥ. Our worst. The mind can be our best friend, or our mind can be our worst enemy. It depends. This is the nature of the mind. Chanchala. Chanchala mana Kṛṣṇa. So Prabhupada says there's no way that we'll be able to control the mind. The mind can only be controlled if we think of Kṛṣṇa. That means an uncontrolled mind is our worst enemy. That can lead us to the cycle of repeated birth and death again and again and again. If the mind is strong, if the mind cannot be swayed by the meditating on the sense objects by the senses, then the mind is our best friend. If it is uncontrolled, one cannot be happy. That's why it says, when the senses is fully under control, the mind becomes peaceful. And when the mind is peaceful, then he is in the happiness platform. Happy. You cannot be happy if your mind is jumping here and there like a monkey. The monkeys, they can be steady if you give them something to eat. Yeah? But if they're really hungry and there's nothing to eat, can you see them stationary? No, they're always like, they will grab your chashma so that they will exchange it for some fruity, or they will grab your bead bags. In Loy Bazaar, they grab bead bags now. Yeah, or cell phones. Yeah, I was walking there one day. I know that if I wear my eyeglasses, there's someone, even from behind, you don't see them. They're just watching. They look like a saint. They're so quiet, right? But suddenly they will grab. So I thought, okay, I will take off my eyeglasses and I will just hold it. And still they grabbed from my hand. So the mind is like this. If it focuses on a certain object, it can dwell on that for such a long time. So what is the proper dwelling place that the mind will be satisfied? Material things, the mind cannot be satisfied. Always thinking of new. Always looking for new. There was a song like that I've heard when I was a young boy in the Philippines. Whenever we see something new, I want to have it. Even though I don't need it. It's like if you watch television. I'm sure you're not watching television nowadays. But before, in television, the commercials, they try to entice you. Commercial. You know the commercials? They will show you that there is a good use for this. And so you should buy it. But because you're attracted to how it was delivered, you may not need it, but you will buy it. And you will buy stock and stock, or stocks and stocks of it. There was the wife of the former president. I gave this example again. The wife of the former president of the Philippines, Marcos. And she had over 7,000 pairs of shoes. How are you gonna wear all of those? Even if you wear one per day, how many years will that be able to, the next time that it will be rotated? Yeah, 365. So 365, that's 10 years. 18 years to complete? Maybe you'll die even before that 18 year. So the mind always like this is, you may say, greedy. So we should be greedy for Kṛṣṇa. That's the way how we can engage our mind so that we'll not be entangled in this material world again and again. So it involves such intelligence in order to get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. And one should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. That is the goal. It says here, the mind always goes out of control if you dwell or you meditate through the sense objects. We've heard, he's out of control. That means the mind is out of control. Yes? So, we should be thinking of Kṛṣṇa. But instead, our mind is thinking of something else. So that is the nature of this world. In the spiritual world, they don't think of anything else except the Supreme Lord. But in the material world, because we are conditioned, so we're thinking of something else besides Kṛṣṇa. So this is the purpose of yoga to meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, So it says here, so we have to catch the mind. Why are you going there? Come here. Think of Kṛṣṇa. So it's like, if the mind think of something else, you have to pull it back. You have to pull it back. You should have a good, or we should have a good material radar detector. You know, in America, I don't know if they use that in India. I think they use that in India also. If you're over speeding, but in America they have what you call anti-radar detector. Yeah. So if you know, you drive, but you have this anti-radar detector, and there's a police, like say 2 kilometers away. So the police will try to catch you, right? But then you have like anti-radar detector, so you'll be able to detect also if there's a radar detector there. So you slow down, so you will not get caught. So similarly, we should have this anti-material radar detector, so that if the material objects, our senses will be caught by these different sense objects, we should be able to detect, oh no, pull it back immediately. Because as long as we have this conditioned platform, as long as we are in the conditioned platform, as long as we are in the bodily platform, there is every chance that we can get trapped, we can get caught. So we have to be very extra careful. And that's why we have to always keep in our mind the instructions from the Bhagavad-Gita. That's why we have to keep on our mind from the messages coming from the spiritual master and the sadhus, the holy men. Guru, sadhu, and sastra. So in this way, we'll be protected and will not be entangled again and again into the material existence. It seems to be very simple, isn't it? Huh? What's that? Spiritual life is difficult, but it is possible. Material life is also difficult, but it is impossible. No way we can be satisfied in the material world. And it's more difficult to make plans how to be happy materially. To make plans how to be happy spiritually, it is also difficult. But at the same time, it is easy if we put our attention into it. If we put that as our priority. Isn't it? They say, oh no, you're doing yoga, you're doing bhakti yoga, you're chanting. That is very difficult. I cannot do that. I cannot give up my sense pleasures. I cannot give up eating meat. They cannot imagine us not eating meat. No coffee, no chai, no intoxication, no gambling. Gambling is more addictive than intoxication. You're already losing in gambling and you still want to win, and you will even sell everything. I know somebody like that. You're already winning, you're already in the top. Let's say you're already like tripled your money, but you're a very compulsive gambler, and you want to double that more, but you ended up losing everything, and you ended up, pawning, go to the pawn shop. It is more difficult to give up than the intoxication. Gambling is worse than intoxication. Illicit sex, that is also difficult to give up, but it is possible. But the false sense of proprietorship or the false sense of being the master is the most difficult thing to give up. The Mayavadis, they can give up wealth. Okay? Some of them, they will not even touch material things. They're very austere. They may not have any connection with women. But to have their position be taken away, that they cannot give up. That is the false ego again. So how can he be peaceful? How can he be happy? There is a book of, I believe it's Raghunath Das Goswami. The title of the book is Vaishnav K. What kind of mind you are. In that book, if I'm not mistaken, it's by Raghunath Das Goswami. The book is like preaching to the mind. Let me see again here, if I can get that. Because it's been a while. I have this book. I have not read it fully. Okay. Let me see. This was a book about preaching to the mind. What kind of Vaishnav you are? He says. That means he's preaching. You are chanting in a solitary place, but you're thinking of woman, money, and adoration. We cannot imitate like Haridas Thakur, with chanting, 300,000 names of the Lord, and being enticed by a prostitute, but never disturbed. Never disturbed. Even Prabhupada says, there was one disciple, he was chanting near that Kṛṣṇa Balaram tree. They used to have a Kṛṣṇa Balaram tree, now left the body. In the Parikrama mark, in that corner of the near the Russian building, there's a devotee, a disciple, who went there for chanting. And Prabhupada says, do you think you will see Krishna there? Chanting alone. You should chant with the devotees, because when we chant with the devotees, our mind is a little bit more under control. But if you are not fully having the mind under control and you chant in a solitary place, there's only the battle between the mind and yourself. And usually if our mind is not fully under control and still material desires is hovering here and there, we will be defeated by the mind. And we will end up sleeping. Hare Krishna. Where is that? I cannot find it now. So we have to defeat the mind. And there is no way of defeating the mind, even though it is material, but the living entities can be under the jurisdiction of Maya if the mind is uncontrolled. So we can control the mind only by thinking of Kṛṣṇa. For the mind is the cause of bondage and the mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense object is the cause of bondage. Bondage means becoming more and more entangled in the material world. And the mind detached from sense objects is the cause of liberation. So the mind should always engage in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. That's why Prabhupada gave us many ways how the mind can be engaged. Many activities. There'll be prasadam distribution. It's like we have new bhaktas 2 new bhaktas, now they're being engaged in Food for Life program. Now if we say, oh no, that is very simple. I don't do that. Okay, we have book distribution. Okay, that's the best way how to be focused also. Remember in the early days when we used to distribute books, our meditation is always in the Paramatma. We're always praying to Paramatma within the heart of each and every person that we are meant to stop. Now, please inspire this person to take a book. And before we go out, we will also read and we will chant even before Mangalartik. So that we'll become so alert and so Krishna conscious. Because usually, and not just usually, Prabhupada says, the books are being distributed because of the enthusiasm of my devotees, of my disciples. Because there was a story whereby they put Prabhupada's books in a book shop in Mumbai, and it was not moving. But when the devotees, this story given by our Guru Maharaj, because he was part of the BBT in India, but then when the devotees started distributing them, books are going out. And we're so absorbed the whole day practically in Krishna consciousness when we distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. So deity worship also, our mind can be absorbed the whole day. What shall I cook for Krishna? For lunch? For breakfast? For dinner? What kind of clothes shall I offer to the Lord tomorrow? What kind of different jewelries and ornaments? See, you're meditating like this. You're preparing yourself for your service. This is Krishna consciousness. Even just thinking or what to say while you are already decorating the Lord. Or while already you're cooking and while you are offering everything. So it is easier to think of Krishna than to think of Maya. Am I correct? It's easier. We just have to be focused. What is my priority? What is it? What is my goal? Ultimately, I want to serve the Supreme Lord and attain a platform whereby I will be a devotee someday. Because right now we're just trying to become a devotee. Maybe some of you already reached that platform. But for most of us, we're trying to become a devotee because to be a devotee is a very exalted position. To be a Vaishnava is a very exalted position. Okay, I will stop here right now. And again, I will read the verse. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. The glitter of the material nature will capture us if we are not focused onto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Any questions? Any comments? Yes?
How to focus mind at 24 hours?
How to focus the mind? 24 hours?
Even 2 hours japa is difficult.
Yeah, sure. That's why it says, even for the grihastas, especially who goes to work, how can you focus your mind and you're working? Doesn't have any relation to Krishna consciousness. Let's say you're a factory worker. If you are able to, maybe you can hear to your recorded lectures of Srila Prabhupada, like an MP3 player or something. You used to have MP3 player, now you have smartphones and you have your earbuds. If you're allowed to do that, That's good. Listen to Prabhupada's bhajans, or listen to audiobooks, or remember what you've read before, or what you've read before going to work. Yeah? If you can remember even one sloka of the Bhagavad-Gita during the whole day and meditate on that, that is remembering Kṛṣṇa. Or again, if I ask you, what is the color of Lord Kṛṣṇa, Radheshyam's outfits today? Huh? Green? Okay, so that's good. That's Kṛṣṇa consciousness, that you're thinking of Kṛṣṇa. Sometimes I cannot remember. Yeah? You had darshan at 8 o'clock, by noontime, you cannot recall what is the color of the Lord's clothes. Huh? So you meditate on that the whole day. Or you meditate on Lord Krishna's lotus feet. You meditate on Krishna Balaram's lotus feet the whole day. How beautiful, how soothing, how effulgent, how they're giving shelter to everyone. We just meditate on that. Then that is Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So it is possible. If you are engaged, of course, this is the difference between the inmates, those, let's say, the brahmacharis, because we are engaged the whole day in Kṛṣṇa consciousness activities. But the grihasthas, they have to try harder to be Kṛṣṇa conscious because of their worldly activities. That's why Prabhupada gave an example. Two persons working in the same factory. One is Kṛṣṇa conscious and the other one is not Kṛṣṇa conscious. Both of them doing the same thing. Let's say hammering or, putting the screws or something. The other one is thinking of material desires. How can I attain that? How be able to, I will do everything to attain this material object that I really want. But the other person is doing the same thing, but is thinking of Kṛṣṇa. This is the difference. Kṛṣṇa consciousness means your consciousness. A change of heart, a change of consciousness. You're doing the same thing, but you are more satisfied. You're more happy. Real happiness. Yeah? And then when the salary comes, the checks, the person who's always thinking of material desires, he will put that in down payment immediately. He'll put that in down payment, or he will save it in the bank so that when it accumulates, he'll be able to buy. But the devotee is thinking, okay, I'm going to do bhoga shopping for Kṛṣṇa. What to offer to Kṛṣṇa? What to buy new outfit for Kṛṣṇa? It's different. Do you follow?
Yeah. But mind is your friend and mind is animal.
Both.
Both
are there. But then if you think of Kṛṣṇa, then your mind is your best friend. How the mind can be our best friend is to always think of Kṛṣṇa, never forget him.
That's the question of how in 24 hours.
That's why I already mentioned to you. And even if you don't have your japamala with you, you can still chant. See, the japamala is there so that we know how many rounds we chanted. Yeah? Because there is a prescribed number of rounds that we promise at the time of initiation. Minimum 25,000 times. That's why some devotees, even while working, they have a clicker. They cannot have the japamala while working, so they have clicker. And then in the clicker, on the top of that, they put also tulsi. Like His Holiness Japatak Swami, his counter, there's a tulsi on the top. So you're also touching tulsi. Yeah? So you know. But if you have the japa and you're able to chant in your japa, chant in your japa. I've seen devotees in Mayapur, you're already in Mayapur and you still have clickers. Yeah? Why? Maybe they still want to, like to be exact. How many? So, yes, to think of Kṛṣṇa is not so easy, but at the same time, it is easier than thinking of Maya and trying to fulfill that desire to enjoy the sense objects. It's difficult and it is impossible. Spiritual life is also difficult, but it is possible. And the end result is unlimited happiness. Anything else? Any other question? In Vrindavan, it's easier to think of Kṛṣṇa, isn't it? For those who are visiting, it's like, oh, I wish I can be here the whole time. But you have to go back to where you came from and make that place Vrindavan by always thinking of Kṛṣṇa. Not just you, but try to encourage the whole family to do the same thing. It may be difficult, especially if you have children. Oh, that's bigger responsibility to have them grow up and raise them to be Kṛṣṇa conscious. It is possible again, but it is difficult. It's difficult, but it is possible. So the best way is to set a good example yourself. You Kṛṣṇa conscious, be Kṛṣṇa conscious. If they see you're Kṛṣṇa conscious and you're happy, they can compare that to the parents of their friends. They don't know anything else except to enjoy the material senses with the sense objects, and always fighting and always unhappy and always disturbed. They don't have any other choice. But our children, they're very fortunate to belong or took birth in a family where the parents are practicing Kṛṣṇa consciousness. This is the best gift that we can give to them. But we have to fulfill also their material needs. It's not that because we're on the path of Kṛṣṇa consciousness and this is, oh no, you cannot have this.